Let's see one more example where we can use return values. This time we'll be generating and returning random numbers, and random values are really useful in simulating any real-world behavior that involves chance or random events, like simulating rolling dice, which we'll get to. When you roll a 6-sided dice, one roll will have a value of either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. But you aren't sure which value it will take for each roll. There's an element of chance. So we can use random numbers to generate a random roll value within this range. But before we get to that, let's learn a bit more about random values in Java. To generate random values in Java, we'll be using a built-in math function called random. This function doesn't take in any parameters, but it returns a random value that we can then use in our programs. And like our println function, which was always attached to system.out, this math function random is always attached to the word math, which we'll learn later. This line of code, which is a call to random, outputs a random decimal number between 0 and 1. The range of number they can output includes 0 but doesn't quite go all the way up to including 1, and each time we call random by saying math.random, this will return a random number, like one call might return 0, another might return 0.5642, another might return 0.3543 in any small decimal up to almost 1. Its maximum return value is still going to be a decimal point, just really close to 1, something like 0.999. And since math.random returns a random value as output, we can assign the value of this function call to a variable. This will be a double because it's a number that involves decimal points, and let's call this variable random number. And now we can work with this return value to get a more specific range of random values. For example, we can take the value of a random number and multiply it by 10 to get a larger random range. We know that our random number will be in the range of 0 to almost 1. So if math.random outputs its lowest possible value at 0, we'll have 0 multiplied by 10, which equals to 0. And this will be our minimum value for this range. And if math.random generates one of its highest value, which is around 0.999, we'll multiply this by 10 and we'll get 9.99, and that will be our new maximum. So we have just changed our range from 0 to almost 1, from 0 to almost 10 just by multiplying. Next, we want to change this range so that we are generating random integers instead of random doubles, which are numbers with decimal. We can cast this value to an int and restoring that value in a variable called random int. Casting means that you are turning one variable type into another. So when we cast a decimal number, which for a random number is a type of double, to an int, this cast will drop whatever decimal value that original number has and turn that double into an int. So say a random number has a value of 9.985. Even though this value is close to 10, we'll cast this into an int and it will then just return 9. And this decimal part, 0.985, will be ignored. And to do this casting, we just write our casting type. In this case int, which we want our number to become in parentheses. Now this random int that holds the value of our cast random number will always be a value in the integer range from 0 to 9, including 9. Great. Now let's use this knowledge about casting and changing range of random numbers to help us write a program that simulates and returns the correct integer value for randomly rolling dice.